And the more that you can be fine with whatever the outcome is, the more that you can then move more freely in the world, the more that you can be authentic, the more that you can be yourself. Confidence and social situations. So I saw a clip of Alex Hormozy recently talking about confidence, and the quote that he said, the phrase that he said was, true confidence is having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. Now, I'm going to challenge that a little bit, because the way that I see it is there's two types of confidence. There's what I would call situational confidence, and then there's what I would call true confidence. Situational confidence is generally skills based. So if you are learning a specific skill, if you are taking part in any area of life, there is always rules, there's always the right way, there's always an ability to measure your success and measure your metric of how well you're doing. So socially, there's kind of unwritten rules about what it means to be good at speaking to people, what it means. You have expectations about your ability to talk to strangers or to interact with the people around you, right? So situationally, you can kind of quantify your abilities based on the responses that you get, right? So situational confidence is your ability within that narrow slither of reality, based on what your expectations are, what you're trying to achieve, right? True confidence for me is getting to a point where deepening your ability to not care what happens in the situation. And that doesn't mean that you are a nihilist and you don't see any meaning or whatever, but it's really about like being okay even if the worst happens. It's being okay with rejection. It's being okay if people judge you. It's being okay with failure, because once you get to that kind of place, when you're in situations where it doesn't really matter to you what happens, then you're not going to be stopped by how you're perceived by other people. And so therefore you're much more able to just be free and be yourself. Now the weird thing is, very often you can learn specific skills that on the surface are giving you situational confidence and they feel like reality, if you will. Whereas very often underneath it, what it actually is doing is reinforcing the true confidence. If you are always been very socially awkward and you've found it very difficult to connect with people, you can go out and you can learn like skills. You can maybe, learn techniques and things like this of how to be better at that kind of thing. And the more that you get a positive response, potentially that frees you up a bit more to actually be more yourself, right? And so it becomes self-fulfilling. But the opposite is also true. Like if you really don't care about how people can or perceive you, you're able to say whatever you want and you're more free, you're more able to connect with people who are on the same wavelength as you because you're authentic, right? Let me give you a good example of how these two types of confidence differ. Imagine that you are the UFC heavyweight champion and you're walking down the street and some like young lad bumps into you, right? This young lad has never had a fight in his life. However, he has learned that when you get into a situation, you shouldn't back down. You should try and intimidate the other person. You should do your best to stand up for yourself, right? But he's afraid because he hasn't had a fight before. And so he is trying to act in the way that comes across within that frame of what he believes is how you're meant to behave in that situation. He is trying to act in that way to show himself as strong and powerful and all these kind of things, right? And so he starts trying to get in your face and he starts trying to intimidate you. And he starts getting aggressive, right? If you're the UFC heavyweight champion, as long as you've got somewhat healthy kind of mental state, right, it's very unlikely that you're going to get into a fight in that situation because you know that you are capable enough to deal with it, but also because you probably know that you have you're all right with most of the outcomes because you've been in a lot of fights, because you know what it's like to get hit, because you probably have been beaten up enough times that it's not a big deal for you anymore, right? And so in that situation, you're going to be the calm one, and you're probably going to be able to shut down that situation and make it not lead to a fight without needing any violence, because you have the true confidence of knowing that you're all right whatever happens in that situation. Now, the real interesting question mark there is, do you need to know how to fight in order to be able to do that? And I would answer that no, you don't, but you would need to know, be able to be okay with getting beaten up, basically. If you genuinely are okay with the worst case scenario, people say like the strongest nervous system wins. Because if you are the grounded and calm one, in most situations, people will come around to the way that you're presenting, the way that you're holding the frame, the way that you are, the way that you are being. You will control the situation if you're the one that's able to stay calm. Okay. Now, of course, it's a lot more effective if you have situational confidence as well as the true confidence, because there are going to be situations where things are beyond your capacity to stay completely calm, right? However, like having both of them at play is the best case scenario, right? However, the more that you can deepen your ability to be fine with the widest spread of possible outcomes, the more easily you can move in the world. Like, you're not defined by rigid concepts and ideas of how things are meant to be. You actually then are free of most of our lives are controlled by inhibition and compulsive behavior, which is all of our conditioning that we've learned growing up. We're literally defined by that. It's like a little box that we all live in, right? And the more that you can be fine with whatever the outcome is, the more that you can then move more freely in the world, the more that you can be authentic, the more that you can be yourself. This is what we do in integration sessions. It's not about finding out how to fix yourself and, learning how to change things. Largely what we're aiming for is finding the parts of ourselves that we haven't yet been able to accept, the parts of ourselves that we still judge, and finding ways to integrate them. Because if we don't judge ourselves, it's very hard for anyone else to affect us. If someone is judging me, it won't land unless at some level I agree with them, right? If someone's insulting me about something that I feel confident and happy about, I'm not going to be affected by it. It's only if there's a seed of doubt or believability in there that I actually feel like it's worth judging, that thing is going to have an effect. And so when we're looking into integrating and when we're looking at all of these problems, what we're actually doing is finding the part of ourselves that we haven't made peace with, finding the feeling, the resistance, the tension in the body that is holding that fear in place, working our way through that, and also working on the mindset shifts to allow it to be okay for that to be a part of our whole. It's expanding us. It's becoming more whole as a human being, rather than holding ourselves in all these little pockets of movement that most of us live in all the time. This is conditioning that we've learned, been passed down from our family, from our friends, our environment, all these kind of things. It's just a work of gently expanding and integrating more and more potentiality into our being so we can move more freely in the world. If you're working through any of these problems, I do have space for new clients at the moment. You can find a link in the description for booking an initial consultation. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.